It's crazy to me that people also act like Israel played no role in this, like the pro-Israel lobby played no role in this, when virtually every politician has at least at least found it important enough to mention that that was a major reason. So what are they doing? Are they lying? Are they lying when they say they did this for Israel? I guess maybe they're just lying. Gallagher is well liked by Democrats and his GOP colleagues and respected as an expert on the issue. His efforts appeared to stall in 2023, but were revived in part by the fallout from the October 7 attack by Hamas on Israel, according to people close to TikTok and close to lawmakers. TikTok's users quickly inundated the platform with videos about the attack and Israel's war on Gaza. Some lawmakers say TikTok appeared to favor pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel content and renew calls to ban the app in the U.S. TikTok spokeswoman said that the videos that lawmakers are concerned about were created by its users, and the company argued it has been fair in moderating pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian videos. October 7 really opened people's eyes to what's happening on TikTok and its differential treatment of different topics, said Krishnamurti, adding that the coming election also fueled concerns. People are concerned about interference using TikTok. Here's Mitt Romney also saying that
Typically, the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here?
US Senator Mitt Romney suggested TikTok was manipulating public opinion by boosting pro-Palestinian posts.
If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so. I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
But perhaps the platform is reflecting rather than shaping views. TikTok appeals to younger audiences and content creators who tend to be most sympathetic to the people of Gaza. And some even accuse the platform of being pro-Israel in removing content in support of Palestine.
Interesting. But there's more. Here's Chris Murphy, TikTok tucking itself in with Trump, Twitter under control of the White House, Facebook making major changes to placate MAGA, doing PR campaign aligned with Trump. Does everyone not see what's happening here and how terrifying this is, says Chris Murphy. To which Mike from Pennsylvania replies, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut was similarly circumspect when pressed on Schumer's conclusion about anti-Semitism in the left. I think there's an awful lot of hateful speech on the left and the right, he said. But Murphy did offer one concrete idea to combat anti-Semitism, banning TikTok. Part of what I really worry about is the way social media sites drive the narrative, especially for young people. If you look at anti-Semitism festering on platforms and you go, we have to ban TikTok, you have to have a fucking hole in your brain. It is ridiculous that you're posting on the anti-Semitic website, like the premier website for people that love posting Hitler gifs, going, we have to apologize to this guy. Twitter is the most anti-Semitic fucking website. What the fuck? This is what makes me so angry about this fucking process, too, because there are valid concerns with social media in general, whether it be breaking the minds of Americans and having a steady flow of misinformation run rampant, data privacy issues. All of these are real fucking problems, okay? But you want to know something? Every platform does it. So solve it by legislating on those issues rather than using those issues to say, this is why we must ban TikTok. That is what is so frustrating about this, okay? It's just a lie. That's it. Part of what I really worry about is the way that social media sites drive the narrative. TikTok is talking about Gaza. The way that TikTok is talking about Gaza is designed to divide Americans from each other. While Murphy had previously been reluctant to embrace a ban, the events of the last 2 months have pushed him toward the view that it's probably time to say that we shouldn't have a Chinese-owned social media company force-feeding divisive information to our kids. Like, what are we doing? TikTok is such a dangerous tool for China, so we're now allowing it to be on every phone for another 90 days, probably longer too. It's super serious security issue, by the way. Please care about China. Please, please, please. Yeah. Here is the ADL. Another very important responsible party for the TikTok ban in general. Okay?
You must, we must, you must take this deadly seriously. Pushing extremists off Wikipedia might not seem equal to.
By the way, they got this across. They got a bunch of the Wikipedia editors banned off of Wikipedia. The ADL actively worked to undermine Wikipedia's editorial integrity because they were upset that Wikipedia was straight up reporting the truth on the issue of Israel. And that's exactly what they did. They got them fired. They like, took out a bunch of Wikipedia editors recently.
The challenge of pushing Hezbollah north of the Litani River. Capturing TikTok might seem less meaningful than holding on to Mount Hermon. Libelous tweets certainly might seem less deadly than missiles from Yemen.
Yeah, he's saying that this is a full-scale war and information is a major component of it, and we have to control these platforms. We have to enforce our will upon these platforms. Understand what he is saying here. It is so ridiculous, man.
But this is urgent because the next war will be decided based on how Israel and its allies perform online as much as offline.
So you'd say there is not a disproportionate amount of youth on TikTok or pro-Palestinian sentiment than other platforms? Than on other platforms? Wait, what? No, I'm not denying that. I'm saying that is the reason why they want to ban it. Hello? Do you have an issue with that? Do you have an issue with that? Okay, that's what I thought. I was confused. No, there is definitely not a disproportionate amount. There's just like a proportionate amount that reflects reality, okay? What are we doing here at this point? Here's the original Greenblatt tweet from 2023. An intercepted communication, leaked audio of ADL Chief Executive Jonathan Greenblatt freaking out because global youth aren't buying Israel's propaganda anymore. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
I also want to point out that we have a major generational problem. All the polling I've seen, ADL's polling, ICC's polling, independent polling, suggests this is not a left-right gap, folks. The issue in the United States of support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old.
True.
And the numbers of young people who think that Hamas's, massacre was justified is shockingly and terrifyingly high. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Taglit, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy toward this.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, they're actively and openly stating it. They're like, yeah, we want to ban it because people are seeing the truth about what Israel is doing, and that's completely unacceptable. And we can't have that. We can't have that.
And we've been chasing this left-right divide. It's the wrong game. The real game is the next generation, and the Hamas and their accomplices, the useful idiots in the West, are falling in line in ways that are terrifying. Last thing I'll just say, we saw a dramatic change in the language of the activists here in America on October the 8th. The language of groups that we've long tracked, who've long been problematic, like Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace, they flipped
like they're talking about young Jews, by the way. Like, they're saying young Jews are too pro-Palestinian, and they're getting radical in the face of like Israel's genocide. It's completely unacceptable. Also, long tracked. Think about that. They've been tracking the statements of students for Justice for Palestine. They've been monitoring Jewish Voice for Peace, like anti-Zionist activists. Interesting.
To like Iranian propaganda. The language I could show you from their toolkits, because our analysts are in their groups.
Like they literally have, they're like, we have spies. We have spies inside of these groups. We have spies inside of groups like Jewish Voice for Peace. We have spies inside of groups like Students for Justice for Palestine. Isn't that weird? This is supposed to be a civil rights organization, chat. A civil rights organization. It's supposed to be tasked with combating anti-Semitism. And they're over here spying on Jewish students for the crime of being anti-Zionist. Make no mistake. They've done this before. They were doing this alongside apartheid South Africa back in the day. In the 90s, they got busted for quite literally doing this surveillance and spying and smear campaign on anti-apartheid activists of Jewish background even back then. Labor activists, labor organizers, American Jews who were against the apartheid in South Africa, they, at the ADL, were working alongside the apartheid South African government and spying on them.
Saw this again on October the 8th. It was that fast. Like the language in their toolkits was all about the Zionist entity and lots of other language that we recognized from Iranian propaganda.
What does South Africa have to do with Israel? Great question. Well, they were both very important, valuable allies during the Cold War. They're both fascists and they're both apartheid regimes. They relied on one another for developing nuclear capabilities. Not the current South African leadership, of course. I'm talking about apartheid South Africa. People calling that chatter a dumbass as if most people don't. Yeah, most people don't know about this, for the record. Yeah, so. That's why I said, good question. Second paragraph, last sentence. Yeah. It also worked with the NAACP to discredit the far-right Naspara operation. In the 1980s, it was involved in the propaganda against Nelson Mandela of South Africa before embracing him the following decade. Do you know why he mentioned Taglit? Taglit. He mentioned Taglit. He said the brilliant minds that came up with Taglit. Birthright. He's saying birthright is an incredibly valuable, an invaluable tool of propaganda for young American Jews. He's saying the brilliant minds that came up with the concept of birthright to do pro-Israeli propaganda should also be able to, deal with this TikTok issue. It's Tagli, is it? I don't know how to say it. Taglit? Taglit, sorry. I mispronounced it. What is
we
this?
need to talk about TikTok. TikTok, if you will, it is the 24/7 news channel of so many of our young people, and it's like Al Jazeera on steroids.
In November of 2023, a recording was leaked of Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the ADL, referring to TikTok as a problem that needed to be taken care of.
We have a major generational problem. The issue in the United States of support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old.
I want to point to something here, okay? Make no mistake. there are other factors from other sectors that want a TikTok banned as well. Israel and the pro-Israeli lobby simply had enough institutional enforcement capabilities in terms of the legislative body to drag it across the finish line. Because if you think that other people, like, if you think that Facebook's Meta, Zuckerberg, Google, Elon Musk at Twitter, like if you think that those guys didn't want TikTok banned, or at least like take ownership away from the Chinese government and like give it to someone else, but ultimately get it banned or, stop it. If you think that those guys that didn't have like an alternative interest in TikTok, you'd be wrong. It benefits them greatly, right? This is why I've also explained that TikTok being banned, technically, as a content creator who's not really on TikTok that much, it benefits me as well, because 170 million people are now going to look to another social media platform. So when I'm defending this on principle, I'm not defending it because of my own personal motivations here, okay? Is someone texting you to add more context? Yeah, dude. The Jews, right? They're texting me to add more context. Is that what you're trying to, is that, what you're trying to say here? Is that what you think is going on? Or do you think I care about the truth and I want to make sure that people are not simply looking at this issue with a reductive, people are not looking at this issue in the most reductive ways possible. Okay? If you think it's just because of Israel, then you're wrong. That's not the only reason. Okay? That's not at all what I meant. Why did you say that? Why did you mention that then? The truth is more complicated. It's more complex than, oh, it's just because of Israel. If you say it's just because of Israel, then you'll be wrong. It's not. I think that this certainly played a major role. Why? Because pro-Israeli institutions and organizations like the Apartheid Defense League, the ADL, AIPAC, and many other groups like this have a lot of motion in Congress. Okay? They do. They have an outsized amount of influence. That's true. Okay? They fund a lot of campaigns. They can get into these rooms that the average American can't. You can see this. You can see this in a hilarious way with Sacha Baron Cohen's Who is America? Think about how many doors he was able to open just by presenting himself as a former Mossad agent, Eran Morad. Think about that. Think about how comfortable American congresspersons were with just talking to a random guy who simply presented himself as an Israeli Mossad guy. For them, they had no reason to think like, oh my God, this must be an op. Because they were like, no, this happens all the fucking time. So obviously, yeah, no, it's just another weird Israeli guy. That's it. Like, it's silly to think about because it was like presented as a comedy, but there is some very serious truth there. He was able to open virtually every door. He was able to interview Dick Cheney, dude. Just because he was representing Israel in their minds in that moment. Because they're so used to it.
And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Tag Lee, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy toward this, like, fast.
Now, one interesting side note here is that I came across an ADL report expressing frustration that they couldn't access TikTok's analytics the way they can with every other big tech company. Like, should they be able to do that? Anyway, now we're about a month into this war, and all these studies started coming out, making claims about the proliferation of anti-Semitism on TikTok. The most notable one from a statistician and tech executive named Anthony Goldblum. He tweeted out on November 30th that a study he commissioned concluded 30 minutes.
Bro, look at this. X being the lowest. Come on, dude. I'm on all three of these platforms. Who are you lying to? That's the other side of this that is so fraudulent, okay? Please understand how fraudulent this study is, okay? All you need to do is just click on Twitter and spend 3 seconds on the platform. Now, why are they saying Twitter is the least anti-Semitic out of all these platforms? Why are they saying that? Because it's owned by Elon Musk, who is, ironically, more overtly anti-Semitic than Mark Zuckerberg is, and certainly more overtly anti-Semitic than any other person that owns any other social media platform. But he went to Israel. He went to Israel and he was like, "Oh, dude, this is, you know, he did it. He was pro-Israel. If you're pro-Israel, you can be as anti-Semitic as you want." Okay? That's the real grift, because these guys are way more invested in combating anti-Zionism instead of anti-Semitism. Now, make no mistake. Do I think personally that there are no anti-Semites who present themselves as anti-Zionists? Of course. I am the first to recognize that. And I talk about it all the time. The likes of Jake Shields, or that one random doctor anti-vaxxer lady who will every now and then, in between like Palestine posting, will just then go and be like, look at all these rich Jews that are in power. Like, that's just you're just using Palestine to be anti-Semitic. You're using the issue of Israel's apartheid and Israel's genocide to actually propagandize your opinion, which is that you want people to hate Jews. Okay? Candace Owens is another example of this. So just understand that while there are people who are prominently featured in mainstream outlets and on all these platforms that are overt anti-Semites, okay? Overt anti-Semites that present themselves as simply criticizing Israel, in terms of the way that most normal people analyze the situation, that is not the case. Okay, in terms of the on-the-ground organizing, that is certainly not the case. If you think that like Jewish Voice for Peace, If Not Now, or Students for Justice for Palestine are run by like rugged anti-Semites, you are a delusional loser. Okay? So why is it that Twitter is seen as the least anti-Semitic website on this study? Okay? Why? Why? It's because the far greater danger for Israel is not the increased anti-Semitic, the increased anti-Semitism in the Western world. That benefits Israel's apartheid project. Okay? This is precisely the reason why I have time and time again explained to you that Benjamin Netanyahu will link up with overt anti-Semites in the West all the time. Okay? People like Viktor Orban, who ran on, you know, Jewish puppets, Jewish puppeteers are controlling society and won. Okay? Authoritarian people like Viktor Orban, who are running overtly anti-Semitic campaigns. Why does Benjamin Netanyahu like Viktor Orban, you might ask? Why does he have no issue with Viktor Orban, you might ask? Because Viktor Orban is pro-Israel. Okay? Why? Can you explain how anti-Semitism helped Israeli apartheid? Yes, because the greatest danger for Israel is not Hezbollah, is not Hamas. The greatest danger for Israel is the notion that like Jews in the West are not fearful of their existence due to increased anti-Semitism. Okay? The greatest threat to Israel is not Hamas. The greatest threat to Israel is Sherman Oaks. The greatest threat to Israel is Beverly Hills. The greatest threat to Israel is Boca Raton in Florida or Brooklyn or Long Island. Because if people are just like, yeah, I'm American, why should I care about this stuff? What are you talking about? If American Jews were to be like, yeah, I don't really associate with Israel like that. I don't really understand why we're just like giving them unlimited weapons. I'm an American, which is normal to think, by the way, and many people do think that. Then all of a sudden, Israel can't exist in the violent ways that it does as an apartheid regime. That's why it's so important. That's why the propaganda is so important. You're like, the Holocaust happened, and it did, of course, and that it can happen again. It can happen again. It's going to happen any day now. That's why Israel has to be a demographic majority Jewish ethno-state, because you have to have Israel as a demographic majority Jewish ethno-state, because if it doesn't exist like that, then, you know, Holocaust 2 is going to happen at any moment, is the prevailing domineering argument that pro-Israeli people make. Crazy you have to clarify? I do have to clarify for two reasons. One, because there are people who unfortunately are so fucking insane that nowadays people do question these narratives, okay? Like as though it's a fucking narrative and not the truth. And two, the reason why I have to doubly clarify it is because people will regularly clip me out of context to try to present me as an anti-Semitic person because of my arguments against Israel behaving as an apartheid state, being an apartheid state. Just so you understand, Israel does not have an issue with overt anti-Semitism rising in the Western world. Okay? Here. I mean, here's Joe Biden elevating that same line. Without Israel, there's not a Jew in the world that's secure, is an insane statement made by the president of a country that has the highest number of Jews outside of Israel. Like, what are you saying?
I think without Israel, there's not a Jew in the world that's secure.
And he said this time and time again. It's like when you're the American president and you say that, it sounds like a threat, dude. You know? Anyway. What? Hey, Hasanabi, is there a study done on your vids on YouTube for being ad blockaded? Just got on for today after watching a 27 video and saw 4 3-minute long ads as opposed to other videos from other popular content creators. Similar lengths, but 3 ads at most. And your longer videos are horrible. Am I the only one who gets this, or is it normal? You think my longer videos are horrible? What? Subscribe with Twitch Prime. Yes. I'm not running ads, but maybe I will. It's horribly dense with ads. Wait, really? Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but it probably isn't my videos. I don't think. Were they talking about my YouTube channel, or are they talking about a fan channel? They might be talking about a fan channel. Anyway. It's your main channel. Your other channels aren't as bad. Can get there on subjects. Not horrible, but full of ads. I'll look into it. Now, the idea your YouTube is trash, Lazlo. The idea that like Israel is the safest place on the planet for Jews is also obviously insane, considering how violent the Israeli government is and how it constantly is trying to do upkeep for an apartheid where there are 5 million indigenous people that they're dominating in perpetuity. That's already a ridiculous thing. The shadow says, right, the place where Jews are conscripted to fight nonsense wars and the biggest Jewish massacre since the Holocaust happened is the only place where Jews are safe. Exactly. Exactly. It's not. It's not safe at all. It's a constant war zone, and it doesn't have to be a constant war zone. It's only a constant war zone because the Israeli government can't maintain it without being a constant war zone. You're always going to have friction if you are trying to dominate 5 million indigenous people in real time. Like, that's insane. So, it's a ridiculous idea, and it's constantly defended by ridiculous people who are pro-Israel. But like I said, this benefits the propaganda this necessitates the propaganda Israel must put out. Okay. In terms of, you know, Israel being an inherently violent settler colony. Okay. Because that's what it is, both historically and in contemporary society. Israel behaves as a violent settler colony. And in order for Israel to keep defending itself on the propaganda front, they have to keep saying like, oh no, if this doesn't happen, if Israel doesn't behave this way, then, you know, Holocaust 2 is going to happen. This is why I took a very long way to explain this, but this is the reason why, one, the Israeli government does not mind anti-Semitism growing in the Western world, because they can use that to tell all of the Jews that live in America or in the Western world to come to Israel, or at the very least offer material support to Israel, or at the very least offer Hasbara, defense of Israel, online. Okay? But yeah, this is a laughable argument, though, to say that Twitter is like 8 times or 10 times less anti-Semitic than TikTok is hilarious.
A day on TikTok makes someone 17% more anti-Semitic. Politicians like Nikki Haley would then go on to regurgitate this claim on national television.
We do need to ban TikTok once and for all. And let me tell you why.
Yeah, also that analysis also featured that analysis also featured a wonderful little tidbit there. They snuck that in there, if you noticed. Anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli sentiment. That's what they did in there. Anti-Israel sentiment is not anti-Jewish inherently. Okay, it's ridiculous.
Every 30 minutes that someone watches TikTok, every day they become 17%.
I remember this was so funny.
More anti-Semitic.
Except that survey didn't say that at all, because A, it conflated anti-Israel and anti-Semitic sentiments, which I believe to be different. And B, Goldblum himself admitted that he made some logical leaps when he was drawing his conclusion. But now things are really moving at a rapid pace. The next day, on December 1st, 2023, the New York Post reported that a group of 40 mostly Jewish tech leaders and business executives confronted TikTok CEO Shouzi Chu over their concerns about anti-Semitism and the allegedly disproportionate popularity of pro-Palestine videos on the app. One of those executives, Anthony Goldblum, the same Anthony Goldblum who we were just talking about. And from everything I understand, the meeting didn't go well, in the sense that TikTok didn't commit to a kind of wholesale removal of pro-Palestinian or anti-Israel content. So from then on, the fight against TikTok pivoted from a kind of PR battle that we were just looking at to now laying the groundwork to push legislation through that would ultimately ban the app. In March of 2024, a bill was introduced in Congress, H.R. 7521, called the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, sponsored by Representative Mike Gallagher.
Foreign adversary control of what is becoming the dominant news platform for Americans under 30. This is a common sense measure to protect our national security. I urge my colleagues to support this critical bipartisan legislation.
The argument is one we've heard before. TikTok, owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, could pose a threat to US national security by harvesting user data, and its algorithm could also be weaponized to, quote, brainwash Americans. Now, these concerns I do think are valid in a sense, but I think it's worth noting that companies like Facebook and Google engage in similar data collection practices, and then
Look at how, oh, he replied to this tweet. We have had a lot of questions about why we labeled the chart anti-Semitic / anti-Israel and not just anti-Semitic. Different people, previously the CEO of Kaggle, what the hell is Kaggle? Different people have different views on which questions count as teasing out anti-Semitism. So we went with a more conservative chart title. For those interested, these are the raw questions that were asked in the survey. Jewish people can be trusted just as much as American people in business. Jewish people are just as loyal to America as other American people. I am just as open to having Jewish friends as I am to having friends from other sections of American society. Compared to other groups, Jewish people have too much power in the media. Jewish people talk about the Holocaust just to further their political agenda. Jewish people chase money more than other people do. I'm comfortable spending time with people who openly support Israel. Okay, one of these is not like the others. Israel has a right to exist as a homeland for the Jewish people. Israel is, okay. The first 6, I'm like, okay, that's like, you know, pretty good at assessing anti-Semitism. And then it immediately goes into the last 5, which are all like truthful statements that will be designed as calling you anti-Semitic. That's crazy. Israel has a right to exist as a homeland. Israel has a right to defend itself against those who want to destroy it. Israel and its supporters are a bad influence on our democracy. Israel can get away with anything because its supporters control the media. Okay, this one is like still anti-Semitic. And then Israel treats the Palestinians like the Nazis treated the Jews. I mean, this is just objectively true. Is fact. Factually accurate.
they would go on to sell this data to China. So China is getting the data anyway. But here's where things get really interesting. You start digging into Gallagher's largest campaign donors, and you uncover a story that goes far beyond data privacy or Chinese influence. Near the top of his donor list is AIPAC, the Israeli lobby. Here's a crazy statistic for you. Of the 500 plus members of Congress, only 33 members did not receive a donation from the Israeli lobby in the last campaign cycle. So essentially, when Israel wants something from America, they usually get it. Now, another contributor I want to draw your attention to, Palantir Technologies, which is a defense contractor co-founded by billionaire Peter Thiel. Palantir just happens to work very closely with the Israeli military, providing advanced surveillance and targeting software used extensively in their war on Gaza. And one of their consultants, a man named Jacob Hellberg, was responsible for writing the bill. Yeah, it's incredible. A defense contractor who profits off Israel's war were also the ones behind drafting a bill that would, in effect, stifle criticism of said war, which is a clear conflict of interest, no? At around the same time, the Jewish Federations of North America penned a letter to Congress urging lawmakers to ban TikTok due to anti-Semitism. Not one mention in their letter about China or data privacy.
TikTok runs all sorts of videos that portray the Israelis acting towards the Palestinians in barbaric ways. And when young people see these videos on TikTok, they obviously become remarkably sympathetic to the Palestinians, and they think badly, to put it mildly, of the Israelis. So the lobby would like to shut down TikTok.
On March 23rd, 2024, HR 7521 passed with largely bipartisan support. Looking back, I was fully expecting the bill to pass the House very, very quickly and easily, because there are a lot of bills that pass the House and don't make it through the Senate. The Senate is meant to slow things down. But 1 month later, on April 24th, the act passed in the Senate, again, with overwhelming bipartisan support, and was signed into law by Joe Biden on the following day. Like I said, I had never seen a bill go through Congress with that kind of speed and velocity, with very little opposition or debate. It's wild. And maybe even wilder, by that summer, Mike Gallagher, the representative who had sponsored the bill, was now working for Palantir as their head of defense.
Ooh!
He didn't even finish out his term. He just resigned from Congress and took a job there. I know, all of this sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory. In fact, the ADL did call this a conspiracy theory. The Atlantic also called this a conspiracy theory. They even name-checked me in their article. Quote, "The entire world knows exactly why the US is trying to ban TikTok," James Lee declared on March 16th. Not bad for your boy here, huh? And honestly, this would remain a conspiracy theory. I don't know if I would have made this video if they hadn't come out and confirmed their true motivations.
Typically, the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? Some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to.
That's why it's so funny when people will be like, "Oh, dude, oh, dude, it seems like we're broaching conspiracy theory territory here," and it's like, okay, but you're saying it. Like, why are you allowed to say it as long as everybody understands you're pro-Israel and it's a good thing? But like, when I repeat it, you're like, well, that's it. Some anti-Semitism happening here. It's not Jews, man. It's Israel, okay? That's the most important thing for people to consider here. Like, if fundamentally you think that like Israel is doing this at the behest of Judaism or Jews, you're wrong. Okay?
Shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I'd note that's of real interest.
And that's where we are today. China or Israel? I'll let you be the judge.